All right, y'all. It is time. We're coming to you live from different parts of the country.
hmm
And if you didn't know, this is what we call the hip hop dark web. So we have about two people in the chat. If you are, I see Philippines is in the house. They're tuning in. If you know, if you're out there, why don't we get a roll call? Say your name, where you're from. If you represent a crew, if you are a hip hop practitioner or fan, this should be interesting because this is where we're going deep. This is the whole point of the show is to go deep, right? We're going to go on in about 5 minutes, you know, and then I'm going to introduce my guests. We're on a little bit early, but if you're on traffic going home from work in the East Coast, perfect time tune in. You know what I mean? Because we're gonna have some discussions today. I'm going to introduce the panel. I'm going to introduce a panel when they come up when the show starts because I got to give a shout out to all my sponsors and stuff like that.
hmm
So again, if you are just tuning in, tell a friend. It's the Hip Hop Dark Web. All right. Oh dang, we got Daly City in the house. We got West Coast in the house. If you have any topics that you want our opinions on, go ahead and put them in the chat. Tell a friend. This is the Hip Hop Dark Web. Yes, I'm not playing any music because guess why? I want to monetize this. But if things are being brought up and I pull up a video that's copyright, oh well. You know what I'm saying? But for now, there's no music, right? I'm avoid it. Yo, Vix. Uh-oh. We got a scholar in the house. We got a scholar. Shout out to BVD. Shout out to the MZK. Right? It's gonna be a good show. I have intellectuals in the chat already, so I'm just happy about that. Who cares about the views, right? Who cares about the views? I got people in the chat. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna start in 1 minute. 1 minute. I'm gonna start in 1 minute. All right. Remember, if there's any topics you wanna bring up for us to give our opinions, you know what I mean? The Hip Hop Dark Web is on live right now. All right. 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. All right. Let us know where you're from. We got Vix, originally from Ohio. We got my man from Daly City. We got Philippines in the house. I like it. I like it. I like it. All right. Okay. I think it's that time. Let's start the show. And before we start the show, I'm going to start with this. This video has been brought to you by Break Connect. Go to the website and register. Check out what they have to offer at breakconnect.com. Yo, what's up? This is Shadow Rock and Pro 41 of the Floor Gangs and Knuckleneck Tribe, and welcome to the first episode of the Hip Hop Dark Web. Now, the reason why I started the show was there was a bunch of reasons why I started the show. And I had people that came into my life, and I started seeing a little bit of like minds, but the difference was like usually the like minds, me being a practitioner, still practicing b-boy, breaker, whatever you want to call it. There's a few that I would kind of connect on an intellectual level. The first person that I've met online was actually Pluto, right? Pluto was a guy that started on Facebook, a Facebook group called the 70s Beat Boy Rocking Page. And when I was looking to dig deep as far as breaking history, it was all there, right there for me. And then that got me in contact with guys like Charlie Rock. That got me in contact with a few others like Dancing Doug. So, Pluto was the first. So right now, pulling him up on the show right now, I got my man, one of the first guys I thought about when I was conceiving, had the conception of the Hip Hop Dark Web is my man Pluto. What's up, Pluto?
What's good? What's up, everybody? How's everyone doing?
Man. Yeah, man. Well, let's say what's up to the chat. Vic says, yo. Man, I think this is JoJo. Yeah, it's from Daly City. What's the theme? Oh, we gotta get there. And then another TBB member, Matt from Italy, right? And that's he's up. Yeah, he's on. So again, when I thought about this, I was like, okay, I gotta get Pluto on here because we had some good discussions. And again, the whole concept was when I would watch Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, who was on, he labeled it themselves, like Eric Weinstein, Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman. He labeled them the intellectual dark web. So I thought, okay, well, I was like, we need the hip hop dark web, but because we dig in the weeds, and we're coming from an intellectual perspective. So now introducing the other person in the panel, very controversial in some ways. We got my man, Dr. Derrick Cologne, Urban Exegesis. How you doing, Dr. Derrick?
What up?
Yeah,
I'm doing good, man. Good to be with you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I want to apologize for Adiza Banjoko. He's in London time. He lives in Leeds right now. That's basically like 11 p.m. over there in England. And, I had to give him a reminder, and I guess he missed the premiere episode. Maybe he's going to jump on later on. I sent him the link. So I picked him because he's like one of the first hip hop journalists, if not ever, I wouldn't say ever, but in the West Coast for sure. He just had a clip that went viral on Instagram. It had 2 million views when he talked about how he interviewed Eazy-E from NWA when he was still in high school. And he's been in the scene for a long time, and he's done he throws the hip hop chess. So he's really close to RZA and Jizza. And I wanted to get definitely a panel that was a variety of different perspectives. So for instance, Pluto is from Jersey, and Dr. Derrick is from the Bronx. So how's everyone doing?
Excited, ready to get it, ready to dig in, man.
Yeah, so the first thing before we bring any subjects up, right, I want to ask you, because I'm going to state this first, right? And this is around the debates that Dr. Derrick seems to like be pulled through, was like the definition of hip hop. And the best way I could like kind of talk about it is like, well, let's talk about the physical manifestation. Let's talk about the actual physical manifestation of hip hop, which is the elements of graffiti, DJ, breaking, right? Not to diss popping or locking, because they existed in a different, I would say that's more funk styles than it is breaking through these things that happen, and then the last MCing. So that's no matter what we do, that's the physical representation of hip hop, the physical manifestation. But if I were to ask you two, and whoever wants to start first, because a lot of people answer hip hop in this way, what it means to them on a spiritual level, on a philosophical level. When people tend to talk about hip hop, they tend to talk about how they feel about hip hop, not necessarily the physical manifestations of hip hop. So the question is to the panel, what does hip hop mean to you? Whoever wants to go first. All right, Pluto.
Dr. Cologne. Okay. I'll go. What it means now. Are you asking what it means to me, or what my interpretation of what I think it is?
All of the above.
Okay. I'll give you a mixture. What I think it is currently is b-boying, DJing, and writing. That's it.
Cool. Okay. And let's go there already. Why not MCing?
They haven't been hip hop since what, like 85, 86?
All right. Well, the show has started.
I'm ready for all the smoke. Mm-hmm. I'm ready for all the smoke.
Okay. Why is that? Why do you think they haven't been hip hop since 86?
okay, you know, it's a little funny for me. I know the typical narratives of what we know is hip hop. You know, all four elements, and then the offshoots or whatever, whatnot. And some people say there's six, some people say there's five, there's some people say nine. But in particularly with MCing has, like, they don't remember that it was breaking that started all this. You know, we can dial back and find that breaking is responsible for all this. You know, a lot of you cats who are sneakerheads, it was breaking. A lot of you cats who are basketball, like, dudes and all that stuff, Rucker style, etc. It started with breaking in and that narrative and the whole nine. So there's so many things that a lot of people do not recognize, that you are following the narrative of b-boying culture. What we know is DJing. That comes from b-boys and hip-hop culture. Hip-hop DJs follow the narrative of a b-boy-esque mind state in a situation, because you have what's his name, the original Clark Kent, who was a b-boy for Clark Kent before he became a DJ, is one of the Herculoids. So he gave a copy of Apache to Herc as a present for one of his birthdays. So a lot of people say, well, they say the foundation of hip hop is the DJ. Absolutely, I'm not going to dispute that. But DJ's foundation is b-boying culture. Take away b-boying culture, the approach, the way hip hop DJs DJ with the aspect of doubles, it doesn't exist. B-boying, when it became doubles, they extended a break with the same two records, it changed the way the dance was. They dance differently, and we can pinpoint the time frame of where that is, which is significant. So also with that, what do MCs rhyme over? They rhyme over two of the same records. What do DJs practice for timing are two records. So when you go back to like rap and all that stuff, they never really totally paid homage. And anytime you see MCs at b-boy events, is trying to hold on to their careers. Not all, but I would say 80%.
I think you said a lot right there. All right, let's go. All right, let's give it to Dr. Derrick. So when I asked that question, because we could continue on that, like what you just dropped a bomb period we could talk about, but like let's go with Dr. Derrick. When I asked that question, what does hip hop mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem. Let me get myself in this frame. I think the problem, for the most part, seems to be that people don't recognize that the foundation of the culture is, I'm not sure I understand, is the DJ who played the breaks specifically, and the b-boys. That's the foundation of the culture. If it was a sandwich, that would be the meat of the sandwich. The graph writers are pre-hip hop, but definitely a part of the culture as far as I'm concerned. The MCs come later, but the meat of the sandwich is the DJs specifically who played the breaks for an audience called the b-boys. That's the foundation of hip hop culture.
Word. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you guys basically are talking about, from what I gather, right, is that you guys are basically, it's not just the physical manifestation of it. It's just like, because of the physical manifestation, it creates your guys' perspective of the spiritual, what you guys in tune to. Am I pretty good about that? That interpretation?
I think let me say it this way. There would be no hip hop culture without the b-boys. That's a fact. And there's a lot of people who'd say that's played out. It's still happening. No, it's not. Rap culture is happening. Hip hop culture is no. Without the b-boys, there's no hip hop. That's, and I don't understand why people can't grasp that. They just want to run from it.
Here's the thing. They can't grasp that. And I'm not just saying this, to sound controversial and all that, but I would say like 90% of people in hip hop don't know the history of the culture.
Yes, sir.
That's gonna be a hot take. I'm gonna make a meme out of that, and
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
I stand by my words and I can prove it.
okay. So what? So yeah, so let's talk about that. What's basically your proof in that? Like, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like,
All right. So if we go on social media, how many pages are called hip hop, and how many of them have hip hop history or hip hop in general, and how many of them have extensive history of b-boying? Most of them it's New York City Breakers and Rocksteady,
yeah,
or
yeah,
or like Legs, and
yeah.
that's the extent of it. And then there's some that have future stuff and all that, but they just pick whatever they have. Oh, you know what, let's make it all 4 elements. So I'm going to go on somebody's situation or their content, and I'll just take this, and now I've got all 4 elements. And then writing, they're so ignorant of writing, and DJing, they're so ignorant of the variables of DJing and the whole nine. So my thing is ask. I tell people, if you know me long enough, if you are talking about hip hop and then all of a sudden you start talking about KRS-One and Rakim, you're losing me.
Mm.
You're
Mm.
losing me. Like you're losing me. I can tell within the first 5 minutes how much you know about this stuff. Whatever. And again, you don't have to be an encyclopedia and all this stuff, but it's like the narrative of, and when it goes back to why I have this the thing for rap is because when you mention hip hop, all of a sudden everybody says it's rap. It's like, oh, we've got to preserve rap. Hip hop is dead and the whole nine. It's like, so hip hop is dead. Okay, so what gives you the reason for that? And then everything they talk about is rap. They can only articulate rap.
Word. All right. So Dr. Derrick, what do you think about that? What do you think about what Pluto just said? He just said, like, like they basically, people don't care. They're just looking at, I don't want to say mainstream because mainstream is very different now. Mainstream before, let's define that. Mainstream before there used to be gatekeepers, right? Right now at this stage and age, like your podcast can blow up out of nowhere. So there's no gatekeeper, right? So what do you think that is? What do you think? What do you think about what Pluto said, taking away what people out there that don't know, what I mean, the history?
Well, part of it is because the many people that are speaking about this, many of them have never been to New York City. They don't understand that culture. It's a specific culture there. The only way I can explain it, when I watched the Grammys and I saw the hip hop, the 50th anniversary thingamajig, I felt really bad because they started, I think, with Black Thought, and then Flash came on with the beatbox thing, and it was real quick, and it just wasn't. I don't know what that was. That was, and then they had a couple of the b-boys in the background doing some moves, but again, it was really a celebration of the 50th anniversary, which is not the 50th anniversary of anything. It's not 50 years, of really focusing on rap. Now, don't get me wrong. MCing was a huge part when it came in. No doubt about it. Nobody's taking that away. But what I'm saying is the elements of when you use the word hip hop, you have to include the elements. It's not hip hop without writing, without a certain type of DJ, and without the b-boys. It's not. It just isn't. That's like loving hip hop. But what makes that show hip hop? I don't even understand that. That's confusing to me.
Word. Okay.
Turn your mic on, Pluto.
I'll say this. What I'll say about the elements is it can be hip hop if you have all those without rap.
Yeah.
That's how more hip hop those elements are than rap.
Right.
From various narratives, because at one point in time they were all equal, but the narrative of things being negated. I think one of the brothers out from the West stated something like, in Freshest Kids, do you know how to do you know what breaking is? And they're like, yeah, but do you know what rap is? It's like rap or present, and that's what it really is, man. Have somebody on here who's an avid person who's all into like rap and all that stuff, and ask them to articulate something outside of that or whatnot. Very few of them can. Well, I would say most of them can. And that's the problem. The miseducation is what causes this narrative of division. I'm not speaking in a sense of division. I'm pointing out something. This is something that needs to be rectified and fixed. Why can't some of these big dudes really support the culture? From a standpoint, why can't they support Floor Gang's anniversary? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yo,
Yeah.
why can't Jay or whatever them, like whatever they have is not even nothing, but it means everything to the people in the culture. It means solidarity. It means that, these people really care and they want to, contribute to the grassroots efforts and all that stuff. And then maybe somewhere on the line, if he goes on tour, he could, like have Profo on tour. You know what I mean? Have people on tour, and all that stuff.
Yeah, just to like, for the audience, I just pulled up a clip from the Grammys real quick because I didn't even see it, and I can see what you're saying. It was still like, I mean, I'm just looking at it's like, oh, at least they have Belly Melon Flash on there, but I hear what you guys are saying. So that being said, so as far as like everyone's like kind of like understanding is like, and here's the thing, on a basic level, not everyone has the understanding, right? And this is the very basis level of just the 4 elements or 5 elements or 6 elements, whatever you want to call it. They're just looking at rap. And I think I had a show, I did a podcast, and it was a Gearheads podcast with my boy Jay Soul, and we had DJ Renegade, who's from the UK. He's prevalent in the breaking scene right now, even though he's a DJ. He coached a lot of people, but he brought up a good thing from the 80s, which I do remember, which was like when I went to a record shop and I want to get a rap album, it didn't say hip hop, it said rap. It didn't say hip hop. From the difference, like now that there's no more Tower Records, if you go to Tower Records right now, you go to the hip hop section. But I remember in the late 80s or mid 80s, it was the rap section. I mean, that's a big thing, because like, hip hop was like just, I think everyone looked at it as the cultural aspect, even in the West Coast. And that's another reason why I have these 2 gentlemen on, is they're both East Coast people, and Adiza is from the West Coast and I'm from the West Coast. So obviously our experience is going to be different from your guys' experience. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You guys in age range and region. So, so again, like I said, DJ Renegade said, yeah, when I was a kid, not even a kid, when he was a teenager, and he wanted to look for hip hop, he had to go to the rap section of a record store. You know what I'm saying? So right there is already like, when we say rap, it's like people, like when people say hip hop, what they really mean is rap, right? Exactly. Like that's what they mean is rap, right? And we've heard KRS-One talk about this over and over again. Like, rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live. You know what I mean? We've heard that over and over and over again. Okay, so now that we're talking about semantics, because that's what we're really talking about, because that's the only way we're gonna have language, right? Is through, like I said, a lot of people think when they say hip hop they mean rap. So I'm gonna bring up a video that Dr. Derrick just made, and it's what was it called again? I'm gonna pull it up right now.
The one I made yesterday?
Yeah.
The etymology of the word b-boy.
Etymology of the word b-boy. Okay, this is very important, and why I felt like it was really good, and we could talk about everything as far as if people disagree or don't disagree. In the West Coast, I can't speak for everyone, right? In the West Coast, and this is when breaking already died for us, right? Being a b-boy, because if you're a b-boy, we called it you're a breaker, right? Maybe that's because of New York City breakers and stuff like that. But if you were a hip hop head, you were a b-boy. So let's, I'm gonna play a little bit of the video, and then let's get everyone's comments. So I'm gonna play a little bit of Dr. Derrick, and you can check out his channel on Urban Exegesis, and I'll put that on link. But let's check out his video right now, right here. Okay, see, let's play it right here. Boom.
By that time, Trixie had already retired, according to his own testimony. Also, he said that original breaking started on the top and was really an up-top dance. But yet, the practitioners of the dance will tell you that b-boying is a floor-rocking dance. So I want to listen to a legend, Ken Swift, describe what breaking is. Let's listen.
You get it off on your top, but everything about the bulk of what you're going to do is going to be down there. 95% of what you did in breaking was on the floor. There was only maybe 10%, I'll say, was what you did on top. It was very quick on top. Top bop was just something you had to do.
So there you have it, an explanation from Ken Swift, who is by far a great student of the dance called b-boying. And so when he is saying that 95% of that dance is on the floor, that is what's known as b-boying or breaking. Anything before 74 and 75 cannot be classified as b-boying or breaking. I wouldn't even call it the precursor.
All right, let's stop right there. Okay, that was, actually that was like, I didn't even plan that. I just like, boop, that said what it said, right? So obviously, we have three things going on in this topic with the term b-boy, which is the very first, Sasa, Trixie, and them, Dancing Doug. Then we have, a little bit later on, now we're talking about the TBBs. We're talking about, the Star Child Rocks. We're talking about, the CC Crew, which became, they would call themselves b-boys. Then the whole term, like what I was talking about, if you were a hip hop head, you were considered a b-boy. For instance, I'll give an example of Erykah Badu's song about hip hop with Common Sense, and Kool Herc was in it, and they called themselves b-boys and b-girls. Even though that even though Common can do a windmill, doesn't necessarily make him a b-boy. So let's talk about, what is it, the term you said, entomology of b-boy. What do y'all think? Let's start with Pluto, since that was Dr. Derrick's video.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I got you. There you go.
All right, my bad. I will just say this. Common is definitely a b-boy. He had a crew out, back in the day, whatever. He may not practice it exclusively a lot, but he definitely was one. But I will say that this is the thing that a lot of different, like, I'll use cliques, that really don't understand, like, everything within time frame or whatnot. All these things, for the most part, have a relevancy, to the topic. It's all perspective. Everything is perspective and access to information. Because for a long time, people, when I was saying things and putting stuff out, people were saying, "Oh no, that's crazy. It doesn't exist," and all that stuff. Until people started to start to realize this stuff is adding up. There were more people to corroborate all of this stuff. So the perspectives of what it is, it all depends on where you've been. So like when you talk about Trixie and some of these guys, they stopped at the very latest 75, and then you have guys like Charlie Rock who picked up, like, who started like 74 to 75, and then like maybe 76, some of them 77, and they have a different perspective. So with a different perspective, with the evolution of the dance, you have different perspectives. Since we're kids and we're not documenting this stuff, some thoughts get lost in the transitions. Some, we're just now comparing notes. We're just now tallying things up. We're just now adding things in the whole nine to get a perspective in the whole nine. So, an open-mindedness to information and for those who actually do deep research, who actually analyze and who actually question stuff, is the best way to, to find those answers. And I mean, the collective of the three of us, with the exception, like, with the help of like other dudes like Noah Rad, who's just like a beast. The information is slowly getting galvanized and slowly, being put into a perception. And now you have to look at, the people who are the subject matter of their thought system and add all of that. So like everything that Ken Swift said is actually accurate, but we don't know when that video was made. So like that's a piece. And that's the thing we also have to be conscious of. All the stuff that, when we refer to people, those are pieces. So when people say, oh yeah, see, that's what it is definitively. Like, yes. But remember, it's a new age of information. There's new narratives of information on this. There's new research. There's deeper research. It's gone deeper than all of that stuff. So you have to take all of that into consideration. You can't just throw out the stuff that's already been there, and you can't just throw out the stuff that's being introduced because it's like, oh wow, this is some new stuff and people are trying to switch that up. No, you just haven't caught up.
All right. Dr. Derrick, what's your opinion on it?
I mean, first of all, I just want to shout out two people, definitely Randy and definitely Sir Noah Rad. A historian, he is a beast. And so when I looked at the interviews and I saw, like in the video, you'll see that I put the picture of the first generation B-boys, which are Trixie, Sasa, Curtis Blow is in there, Dancing Doug is in there, Charlie Rock is in there. And I said, wait a minute. Okay, so Charlie Rock gets busy at 74, becomes a Zulu King in 75 after battling Zambu, but he's considered a first generation B-boy. Okay. If I'm going to use that logic, I'm just asking questions. If I'm going to use that logic, then TBB should be considered first generation B-boys. If I'm using the logic, because if Charlie Rock gets in 74, 75, what makes him a first generation B-boy? That's what I'm trying to. And so I'm asking Pluto that let's conversate about this, because I'm just using what we had on Norin's page. And I think Norin did respond, and he responded this morning, and he said, I'm not really feeling this at all. And I'm not sure why. And I'm open to correction. But I didn't say anything in a negative way about Trixie or any of them. I'm just sort of asking the questions. When we look at that term B-boy, when does a B-boy become a B-boy? Because Herc doesn't call them that until 75. But yet Trixie said he was doing it in 70, 71, 72. Dancing Doug also says the same thing. Okay, I get it. But the terminology is not till 75, and that's not even until the Hevalo. That's not even at Sedgwick. That's the Hevalo. That's a totally different time. So, Pluto, what are your thoughts? Curious.
Wait, one second. Wait, one second before you answer that question. Stick to it, because I don't want to ignore the chat. I just want to give him a shout out. Okay. J Prime says word. Josh says finally. He's talking about the Hip Hop Dark Web. Jersey in the house.
Yeah, Jersey.
Yeah, he says, yeah, I delve into both breaking and the sneaker culture. Vic says the first DJs were breakers, and he also says, what's the fifth element? Oh wait, no, we got more. Damn, okay, I skipped over that. Break dancing start with Burns and going off to the break. Each generation has a different perspective, and then he says, "Fire, Dr. Derrick, fire." Okay, all right, continue on. Sorry about that, but yeah, go ahead.
Rehash a little bit of the question you had.
Yeah. So Pluto, I was asking. So if we're using that logic of the first generation B-boys, which I believe they were the first generation.
Yeah.
I just wrestle with that term because in Trixie's interview, they asked him, Norin asked him, and he said, no, I didn't call myself well, obviously the name wasn't given yet, but I was just Trixie the dancer. That's all I know.
All right.
So the Charlie Rock question was what I had. If he's considered first generation, why wouldn't TBB with Batch be considered first generation?
Okay, here's something, you know, that I've said throughout the years. As far as, okay, for me, from my research and how I coined it to make it easier, you know, from 73 to 79 or like 78, you know, those, I categorize that, you know, as b-boys. Okay, I categorize them as first generation b-boys. Now the Salsas and Trixies and all that, I do acknowledge them as like burners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were the precursor to what b-boying was. They were burners because you're actually, you know, 75 is pretty much 70, late 74, 75 is when, you know, a lot of that, you know, I would say the term properly should be acknowledged from you know, the research that I've had so far. Now within the generation, I would say, you know, again, the guys from 73 to like late 78, 79 are first generations. But here's the intricacy of it is like you have generations within the first generation of the 70s b-boys. You have like the beginning very first, your Salsas, your Trixies, your, you know, and your Charlie Rocks, and then it goes into like your Zulus and your TBBs and all that stuff. And then, you know, based off of the history, but that doesn't mean it excludes them as individual b-boys, because, you know, people in crews started, some people started in 74 or 75, you know, JoJo and what's his name from CC Crew, what's that?
Spy?
No, Spy's teacher.
I don't know.
Starts with a C. It'll come back to me. He started, you know, JoJo and those guys started in 74, but, you know, JoJo started earlier than a lot of those guys because of the influence, because he learned b-boying from, you know, a lot of the brothers, you know, in the whole nine. So you have to take all of that stuff to consideration. So for layman's terms, before you get specific, I would have to say that, you know, people from 73 to about 70, 75 are first generation of the 70s first generation. So, all right, let's say we're going to put a cloud over all of that time frame from 73 to like late 78. They're all first generation. So now specifically from 73 to like 75, those guys are like the first generation of those. Then you have like the mid to second, which is like 76 on to like 78. So then you got guys like, you know, and then you have guys like Legs and Kenny and all those guys who started like in 77 in the end. So there's 3 generations within the first generation, and that's how I explain it to make it easier. So anybody who falls under that time frame based off of either when their crew was came in the inception, or when you know, or when them, you know, them personally, you know, came, because again, some people started before others, and other people, you know, went into crews and a whole nine. So that's the best way, you know, to start that. But as far as the term b-boy, I would say the term b-boying owns its rights between like late 74, 75. Anyone before that, you know, now, yes, you know, it's acknowledged, but anyone before that, those guys are definitely like burners, because that's what they said. This is what we were doing. You know, that was what's prevalent with them. It's like burners. But then also simultaneously in 75, you also had guys who acknowledged themselves as rockers, in particular on the floor. So you have to acknowledge rocking and b-boying simultaneously, you know, at the same time going on. You know, breaking, you know, some could argue, you know, that, you know, that was the black perspective. Rocking, some people could argue that's the Puerto Rican perspective. But the thing about it is there were b-boys that were Puerto Rican that were more on breaking, and then there were black dudes that were more on rocking.
Okay.
throughout that time frame that people have to acknowledge. So all this stuff has to be laid out and put into a proper context. And for years, like a good 7 years ago, people were asking me to do a timeline, and I said, people are not ready for it because they didn't get past the stuff that was already out. I think now, now's a good time, to start making a timeline.
I agree. I mean, that was the whole thing that I feel like here, I'm gonna mute your mic a little bit. Sorry. Yeah, so that was the thing that's I feel like people are ready for now, right? We were so used to the same, like if you think about it, right? This story, this narrative of just the basic stuff has been out there for at least 30 years. And with the internet age, even though we don't have footage, it's time to there's too many people that are alive, and now we're more connected more than ever, right? Like if you asked me to, find Charlie Rock 15 years ago, that would be impossible for me being in San Francisco. But now I could just look on Facebook, right? I could look on Google to Facebook to Instagram, and someone will somewhere somehow knows. Even Doug right now, Dancing Doug, shout out to Dancing Doug. He's going around the country doing his documentary. Why? Because he has access to these people that maybe he thought passed away, or it's not just hollering at your cousin that might know someone from that block. Now you could actually have more definitive thing, because like all we had was Fresh as Kids back then. That was like 2002. That's literally 20 years ago.
Profile, I want to say something really quick, just in case these guys do end up seeing it. I want to make it clear that, and I've spoken to Doug and did an interview with Doug, and I don't ever want any of them, because I got some comments today from people that were accusing me of dismissing. No, that's not what I'm doing. The title of the video is the etymology of the word b-boy. Obviously, in 71, 72, that word was not there. That wasn't a word. So I know from what they told me what they were doing, and from what I saw in Nora and Rad's interview. Okay. But I don't ever want it to come across as I'm being disrespectful to those guys. My personal opinion, now this is me personally, I just don't believe, because I don't know that we know what they were doing. Is there anything that we can see now to show what Doug, Trixie, what were they doing? What did burning what they were doing, what did it look like?
You know what? I say, to give one of the best perspectives of that, or one of the closest, one of them, and we could always dig for that. I would say that I would say Pee-wee's Dance. Pee-wee's Dance is a good starting point.
Okay. So you think that's what it looked like?
Well, that's one of the narratives, that's something, you know what I mean? As opposed to just wondering. That's one of the things, we can look at, and he's real funky, he has his own particular style, and not, he was very much different than a lot of those guys. But that's just one perspective of a narrative to go on. We also can look at rocking and really, understand burning. And here's the thing, I forget what I was talking about this last night. The whole narrative of Top Rock. Here's the interesting thing about Top Rock.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Top Rock is something that originally came about through, a lot of the late 70s, early 80s B-boys. And it was something that they did, and it was never fully developed. It's an offshoot of rocking, the original form of rocking, so they took pieces of that and movements and all of that stuff, and then they created that. So now fast forward to now, you got guys, like Wiggles and what do you call it?
Why not?
Why not? Who reinvented it and now are adding text and adding vocabulary to it. So now we're in an age where rocking, has its own lane within the culture. So, it somewhere down the line, it might have to get an acknowledgement of its own element, because why not? Hip hop is all about development. Hip hop is about development, and styles and all of that stuff. So now I see what rocking is doing. It's putting money, it's putting energy back into top rocking. Top rocking is giving it back. So what was taken from to create is now giving to what it took from, and then what it took from is going back and recreating that. So simultaneously, there's certain things. If you look at like guys like Why Not and Wiggles and what they're doing, they're adding to the level of top rock, and they've gotten the influence from rocking, and rocking is also doing all of that stuff. So it's like a big brother overlooking a little brother and developing, his style.
So would you say okay, so when we talk rocking, right, we're talking obviously about Brooklyn, but we're talking about the Bronx too, and we're talking about the brothers and the Puerto Rican brothers. Are you talking about the window of rocking, like the Frank Rojas, Enoch, and the Outlaws? Or you're talking
I'm saying it all, because
okay.
I'm saying it all, like for instance, when you see, like, I would say, top rocking now is the new freestyle of rocking.
Word. I would agree.
It's the new freestyle of rocking. So it's not just Brooklyn, it's not just the Bronx, it's that. And then and then you have the Russian dudes, that add stuff. And then then you have Asian brothers who add, their flavor. People are incorporating martial arts and influences from their own cultures and the whole nine. This is what the culture's supposed to be. This is supposed to be the evolution. This is supposed to be what it's about in the whole nine. So now, certain b-boys, are doing more tops than they've ever done before.
100. I agree. I think I would have to agree with that.
Educated on what rocking is, the original form of rocking. They're probably being educated on that. So now it has its own lane and whatnot. It's something that like it's gonna eventually develop and have its own element. And if we are getting progressive, that's what should be acknowledged, because a lot of people are seeing things within our community and saying like certain narratives are taking away from the culture. And it's like, no, everything's just being built up. We're just having more avenues,
Right.
And that's why, some people are worried about what's going on with the Olympics.
Ooh, wait, hold on. we're jumping ahead. That was like going to be my last subject. But so dude, what you just said was dope. Like, this is the whole thing that, what you're saying is like, it's evolving, even though there was such thing as rocking and different styles of rocking, not just the Brooklyn style or Bushwick style or slope style and the Bronx. Because now we're fitting Willie Estrada and Enoch and Frank Rojas and TDB and to the whole term of rocking, which is good. I think that's good, because it's then becomes a New York thing.
BBD is pushing it, man.
Oh yeah. BBD is like the biggest out there right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just period, right? Like, shouts out to Ray Guns. He's in Philippines right now, BBD.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so check this out. So as we bring up the subject, and that'll be the last thing. We're going to talk about the Olympics. That'll be the last subject. But I just want to bring up this because a lot of the viewers actually are our age, but I like to use reference because no one has brought this up. So I'm about to bring a clip up. I'm not going to say anything about it. We're just going to watch a clip. Then I'm going to comment.
You know what?
And then
can
I'm
I
have you guys. Go ahead. Go for it.
Can I just say something?
Yeah. Go for it.
Is it the bogus narrative of the 50th anniversary?
No, not yet.
We got to talk about that.
We will talk about that too. We'll talk about that too. I mean, this is more, to me, this is more like, this is the thing I'm going to bring up. This is digging, like super only the heads would know, and maybe it's going to go over all the viewers' heads and be like, what is this? Why are you bringing this up for? Like, it doesn't matter. But just for me, because I have you guys on. It's important because I have you guys on. It's not just me talking to like a bunch of 12-year-olds that don't understand what I'm talking about, or 16-year-old b-boys that don't know what they're talking about. They're like, huh? We just care about moves, guys. Like, So I want to bring up this clip, and I feel like it's a piece of history that will actually address a lot of Dr. Derrick's viewers and fans.
Okay.
Yeah. It's this. Okay, so let me play it real quick. All right, and that's what's good about the Hip Hop Dark Web. I know you guys have your own shows, but this is where I'm like, Jamie from Joe Rogan. I could pull up clips, guys.
Tell everybody why you guys are in Toronto first and foremost. Well,
So
created
I'm
this
bringing up
show
this
or
clip
whatnot and
because to
represent what we
me,
believe to be the original culture called hip hop, and we want to share the culture with the people out here in Toronto, Canada, and show people what Get Original is all about. All right, so all right, you want to introduce the Get Originals? Yeah. All right, come on, man, they can speak.
Yo, what's up, man? My name is Quickstep.
so
up,
this is
Defo?
actually Rap City,
Peace, Blades
Toronto.
Almighty. Peace, B-Boy Zulu
And
Gremlin.
Crazy Legs, Zulu Nation, Rocksteady crew. All right, in the house, in the house. So now what I want to ask you guys, what's the concept behind Get Originals? What is Get Originals?
All right, Get Original Productions is not just a dance company. We came over here to perform as both a dance company and, well, actually, let me rephrase that. Get Original Productions represents any true element of hip-hop culture. And what we like to tell people is that, you know, a lot of people are listening to a lot of rapping, and it's all about rapping and rapping. And we like to remind brothers and sisters that when you look at a culture, it doesn't consist of just one element. You have dancing in cultures. You have, of course, the music, which the DJs cut up for us. And you have graffiti, which is the art form, you know? So you may not see any of us doing graffiti in our shows, but you're definitely gonna see some dancing, some true original b-boy dancing and boogieing, popping and locking, and you're also gonna see us catch wreck on the mic.
True. All right. So speaking of dancing, man, we
all
gotta
right,
drop some
all
stuff
right.
on the
That's
nation,
what I
man.
want
Let's
to
kick
drop
off some
because this was the campaign in the early 90s where it got defined for us. And why I bring this up is because a lot of the kids, I wouldn't even say kids, my peers that are about 36 to 39, this is the Bible. This is what we worship. We don't question anything. And this created a divide at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Where I could be open enough to ask questions and question certain things. This is what I call in this era, the true school hip hop campaign. This was the first, right? Where we start to define it's b-boy instead of breaker, right? We're b-boying instead of breakdancing. This was the time. And obviously they did this across the world, right? Not just Rocksteady, but as Ghetto Original Productions, which they're sponsored by Calvin Klein and had the off-Broadway play Jam on the Groove, right? This was the push, you know what I mean? Because they, you know, and this is where I feel like, and I'm sorry if this is where Miami and Florida goes, this is hip hop, nothing else is hip hop, whatever. And then, like, you know, it's this, you know, and then it creates shouts out to Mex, rest in peace, Mex. You were one of those guys, or you just held this
Absolutely.
and wouldn't be open, which I was, because the problem is he wasn't open to the Brooklyn history. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? He didn't know about, he wouldn't go as deep as a Charlie Rock and a Trixie. Well, we are. So I just want to bring this up because a lot of people hold on to this. So what do you guys think of that clip?
I was fortunate enough, you know, to see Jam on the Groove and actually, you know, go behind the scenes of the production and watch them practice and all that stuff. I thought, you know, Jam on the Groove was phenomenal. I remember seeing Ghetto Original and it got me excited. You know, it's like, oh wow, you know, like not only is, you know, this element coming back and all that stuff. It was something, you know, that was being, you know, they had education. And I'm you know, when I was teaching, you know, heads how to dance, I you know, I taught, you know, I taught the history along with it. You know what I mean? So you know, people could be articulate or understand or know where it went. So if you wanted to go on your own, you know where, you know, to look and who to look for and all of that stuff. And that's the way I came into this culture. You know, it was a learning tool. Building my skills and learning were synonymous. Neither one of them, you know, like it wasn't something, you know, like, okay, I went, you know, for this one or that. No, like they both go hand in hand. So I applaud them for what they do because that is what I call, like, I have definitions of all of, you know, of the history of breaking, and that's part of the rebirth era. That's what I call the rebirth era.
Dr. Derrick.
I mean, no question. I think those guys, when you talk about intellectuals who can not just dance, write, MC, DJ, they can break down the history of the culture. You know, from Fable to Wiggles to, I mean, these guys know their stuff. They know the story. You know, and it's not even about that. I'm almost over this whole Puerto Rican and black. That we're not even on that anymore. Like, it's just about what is the narrative. Let me ask Pluto a question. Pluto, in your you know, your research.
Yes.
Do you remember anybody calling b-boying breakdancing in 71?
Not at all.
No. So I have a first generation guy who told me this himself, they were calling it break dancing.
Yeah, I've seen that narrative, you know, and it is always, you know, I've always scratched my head on that. I don't know whether it's from them seeing it in the 80s or like cultural conditioning, because, you know, Legs and those guys talked about, you know, like, yo, we got caught up calling it that too, whatever, whatnot. Everybody did at one point in time. So I don't know, like, because, you know, the power of media, I don't know how strong a hold it had on each individual or whatever, whatnot. And I don't know whether they're saying it, you know, to articulate it, you know, so people don't, you know, you don't have to go into a big explanation narrative. Because one thing I've noticed is like we're like society outside of our culture is starting to understand the term b-boy. You don't, we have, you know, a lot of times people say, oh, you know, I'm a b-boy, but, you know, the commercial narrative is, you know, breakdancing, you know, and oh, I understand. That's slowly waning off. I mean, I'm not saying it's totally gone, but a lot of people are understanding that. And I think by this time next year, a lot of people outside the culture are going to get a better idea of what this is called and what this, you know, what this is. So it's important for us to push the narrative of information and proper education. And then getting back to that, one thing I want to say about that clip was those were like the first guys that we saw that, like, we were like, wow, they're articulating this shit so dope. You know, those were the first guys. So those are the guys that inspired us, you know, like Profo was saying, you know, to you know, to be like not only be dope, but to be articulate with this. You know, it's like, wow, you could be articulate in hip hop. You know, you can actually, you know, transform these things. And as time went on, I mean, what's that? Like, that's like 90, it's like between 92 and 95.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So flash forward to all those now, you know, how many documentaries did Fable do? How many things that, you know, he's known as, you know, as a historian, you know, and the same with Wiggles, you know, with his content on YouTube and the narratives that he's introducing and all that stuff, whatever. So these dudes have always been pushing all of that stuff, you know, fast forward to the 90s, because, you know, they were the first to mature.
Right. Go ahead, Dr. Derrick.
Yeah, I have another question just for Profo. You, on the video, I think you were one of the first persons to leave a comment, and I want you to speak to the comment.
Okay, sure.
You said, this is Pluto, who said, many can't comprehend these narratives, so they get lost or confused for lack of knowledge and or research. What did you mean?
Say that again. Oh, I thought that's me. I said that?
No, that's Pluto.
Okay.
Like it's like, all right, I'm going to share something, you know, that I'm going to do in the not too distant future, and this is the kind of answer that, and then I'll go into like a direct answer.
Okay.
What people don't understand is my research was like a social experiment on hip hop culture, and everybody is involved in this. Everybody take this as you being personally, you know, acknowledged for what, you know, what I'm about to write. I'm going to write a manifesto on, you know, how I see the culture and how the culture responds to information, and how the culture responds to narratives of forwardness and developing things, and how we negate information, and how we fight, and how we're in our own way for progress. So there's a bunch of narratives. You know, I saw so many things when I did the 70s page, and the thing about it is I had, I pretty much had it in my mind 10 years before I did the page, and everybody and a lot of people who responded the way they did, I saw it all. So when they responded, I'm like, yo, these cats don't even know, like, I'm 10 years ahead of them. They're responding like I knew they would. Particular people, and those people, and with that, it's going to be interesting, for people to see how they look in this culture, and how this culture really, how, like, everything that we say we were in this culture, most of us aren't.
Word.
Answer the comment.
Okay.
I'm going to read it.
Read it again. Yeah, read it again.
To piggyback on that is, like, with some of, going live with you, and then, in my own accounts, of what I had in the past, of people, just like negating, what was said, but it's like, okay, so then what's your reasoning? What's your proof? Like, I have proof of what I say. I can prove what I say. I have receipts for that stuff, and then when I show these receipts, people just all of a sudden, they just can't give a straight answer, or they can't give a direct answer to all of these things. So, and what I'm trying to tell people is like everything that was going on with the situation with the Black and Puerto Rican thing, myself, Charlie Rock, and Dancing Doug, like, addressed that 7 years ago. And my thing is, like, y'all are late. A lot of the narratives that is going on, people are late. That's why I said, I didn't want to do a timeline, because people couldn't get past what was already in front of them, which are frivolous topics of information, like, or situations like, that one, again, people are in the way of progress or whatnot. So, like, if I were to, just keep going forward, and unfortunately, I've had to slow down certain things, and I've had to redirect or whatnot. And it comes down to, like, people they just don't, they don't want to see. You know what I mean? And it's cool, because you know what? They don't have access to information. So the people who are negating the stuff that you're saying, you have to look at them. They're not even 2,000 miles within the area. And these people also, the same token, don't even know the ABCs of this shit.
Right.
So if you don't know the ABCs and you're talking in a whole nine, like, we really can't have a conversation. To make a statement, like, there's no point in teaching people who don't want to learn. Right. So it's like, okay, that's cool. Like, this conversation is done. But, if you want to learn, realize there are people out here like you guys who are doing diligent work, and other people who are doing diligent work in the whole nine. So these people, we're not like the people before us. We're dealing a little deeper. We don't have politics or certain things in the background that say, oh, I can't do this or whatnot. We're actually speaking freely. We're speaking about from the research, and we can prove what we say. So this is what those people just don't catch on.
No, I appreciate that. I just because I have so much respect for you. I told Rand this. I said, you know what? After I did it, I let Rand see it first before I put it up.
Yeah.
And I said to him when it was over, he said, it's cool, man. Light it up. Do it. I said, I wonder what Pluto's going to think. That's the first thing came out of my mouth, because I respect you so much.
I appreciate that.
Work. And so, when you made that comment, I actually thought you were making that comment to me. Like, this dude don't know what he saw. So it feels good to know at least I'm on a page that is okay.
You were the subject matter that I was defending on an angle that a lot of people, I've said it so many different ways, and slowly people are going to catch on.
But see, here's the deal, Pluto. Here's the deal. Let me ask you this question. And he might see it, he might not. We're already here. Let's just do it. I was, again, I spoke to him one time. I was confused by Norin's comment. I don't understand that, because he's a historian. You're a historian. I wasn't sure what he meant by, was it, I used his stuff, I asked him permission, and he said, anytime you want to use it, just ask permission. I gave him credit. So that's why I say, man, did I say something in that video?
What was the statement?
The statement was, I am really not feeling that at all. That was just, it was just like that. Because I sent him the link, and that was his this morning. And he said, I am really not feeling that at all. And, you know, I take my scholarship serious. And if I'm off in any way, I want to know that so I can make corrections. I'm not above that. So I don't know if I'll ever know that from him.
Here's the thing I will say about Norin. Norin is, he's very, like, he loves the hell out of this culture, man. I've never seen anyone in all honesty outside myself that loves this culture as much as he does. He, you know, we've had conversations for years in the whole nine, and we share information. I'm like, yo, I found this. He's like, oh, I found this, and you know, we go back and forth in the whole nine and whatnot. He might be, you know, I don't want to put any words into his mouth, but he might be meaning, you know, like the whole situation, because a lot of the conversations that we have are like, yo, what's going on? What's wrong with the situation? What's wrong with the culture? What's going on over there? You know, he's telling me what's going on over there. And, you know, he's the type of dude, like, you know, like he doesn't even listen to 90s hip hop. He's a Cold Crush, you know, and you know, from that era, you know, that time frame and all that. That's what he rocks. He rocks tapes. He rocks the old school tapes and the whole nine. He still loves that, you know, and that, you know, that's what he has love for you. I mean, and I don't know if you've seen it, you know, he even, you know, is managed to get like some of the ill gear from back in the day.
Yeah.
You know? That's the level that he's at. So it might be a situation where, you know, he's not feeling like the whole the atmosphere of the culture and some of the narratives of the direction that's going on. And, you know, and I've told him, like, yo, we you know, it's up to us and a few other people, you know, to get this right or whatnot.
Yo,
you know? So it's like,
hey, just sorry to cut you off, but I just want to say one thing. Representing the West Coast, late to the party, but never not great. We got my man Adiza.
Oh, man. I'm so sorry, man. I'm entering on a bended knee of sorrow. I'm entering on a bended knee of sorrow.
Good,
many
bro.
apologies.
It's all good.
Like
we've been at an hour.
You know
we already were in it for an hour.
I'm so sorry, bro. And you know what it was? It was like the last time we spoke. I thought we were starting this at 11 my time. So I teach jujitsu, and I was at the spot training with all.
Go ahead. You broke up a little bit. Say that again. Okay, he's not coming in. But this is Adiza. Adiza, again, one of the first journalists in the West Coast on hip hop. One of the first original members of the Zulu Nation in the West Coast, and I think his reception isn't good. But before we let him deal with that, let's go to the chat real quick. Sorry to cut you off, Pluto. But on way back, Deso Channel says, timeline, map, and flow chart, please. And he's talking about the timeline. Matt says, yep, get that line up, please. Okay, still more more timeline. Okay, there you go. He's coming back.
Okay.
Christine says, coming to support the cousin, Urban Exegesis. You know, Urban Exegesis. Deos Channel says, shared on Facebook. Thank you so much, brother. And then Vic says, it's because although they didn't get down and stay down, but they were the best to burn on the break. That's the original break dance. Okay. So we want to go through the chat real quick before I reintroduce. Oh, wait, no, there's more in the chat. Christine says, everyone smash the like button. Thank you so much. Maurice says, peace, unity, love, and having fun from the Netherlands. Yo, shout out to the Netherlands. Christine says, great topic. And then And then Deso says Bishop has entered the chat. Okay. All right. So I know this is we just talked a lot about breaking. Just to let Deezer know what's up, we talked a lot about the history of breaking. To reintroduce everyone, we got Pluto, one of the premier researchers in breaking, right? From New Jersey. We got Dr. Derrick, born and raised in the Bronx and was around in 1975 for a lot to witness Grandmaster Flash at what park were you at when he used to the park he used to spin at?
No, I wasn't at the park. I just knew where he was. It's 23 Park in the South Bronx.
Word. Yeah. So he was one of the original guys. And again, Adisa Banjoko, we already gave an introduction, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so that way the chat catch up.
Yeah, word. So first of all, I just appreciate you, and again, I apologize for being late. My name is Adisa Banjoko. Pen name is a Bishop of Hip Hop, one of the first West Coast writers for the Source, rap pages, and stuff like that. I was arguably the first person to ever interview Eazy-E and cover NWA for my high school newspaper when I was like 17. 2 years later, I befriended Tupac. We were homies way back. And I'm one of the founders of the Zulu Nation in the Bay. There were 7 original people. I was one of them. This is before there was a million different chapters, when there was just Zulu Nation. And that was because of Alex Aquino, you know what I'm saying? And it was a good time in hip hop, you know what I mean? That was around the time when I first met you guys, you know what I'm saying? You and your brother. And it was a fantastic intercultural experience for me. And then I went on to write a few books about hip hop, and I was one of the first people to write about hip hop and martial arts.
Something happened to his mic. Something happened to your mic, Adiza. Something happened to your mic.
My mic?
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now? Or is it good? It's not good?
Yeah, it's good now.
And then I was the founder of the Hip Hop Chess Federation, which no longer exists, but it fused music, chess, and martial arts to promote unity, strategy, and nonviolence. If you look into that online, you'll see me with Wu-Tang, Jizza, whatever. We raised a lot of money. We did a lot of work in the juvenile halls, like in the Bay Area, in St. Louis, you know what I'm saying? And we did some really cool things. I shut down Hip Hop Chess Federation a few years ago, and now I have a new organization called 64 Blocks, which is about fusing jiu-jitsu, meditation, and chess to create mind and body balance, right? And so 64 Blocks is about to roll out heavy middle of this year. And so I'm in Europe right now. I'm in the UK, and I'm teaching at a couple different jiu-jitsu schools, mainly at Gracie Baja Roundhay Leeds, but I just finished being at Leicester Shoot Fighters. I got another one coming up at EKBJJ. And I'm just grateful to be here, man. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, man. So I was actually like, you know, not to be disrespectful to Pluto and Dr. Derrick. While you guys were talking, I was trying to look up Adisa's clip, and like, because he did a podcast with this guy Dregs, who's a Bay Area hip hop historian. And this is what kind of led to the intellectual. Like I said, I was inspired to do the Hip Hop Dark Web because of Dr. Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Eric Weinstein, and Les Friedman, and they coined themselves the intellectual dark web. So what brought up the other hip hop dark web thing was like this is what started kind of the beef with you and KRS-One was you had an article that came out called, let's talk about that. The article you called about intellectual. What was it called?
So basically what happened was when KRS-One started, and KRS-One, for just to be really clear, me and KRS-One were really cool for several years. I think I met him when I was 19. I think I met him in 1989, right? When 89 was the number, I met Chuck D and KRS-One in the same year, right? As a 19-year-old. And, those friendships changed my life.
Oh, shoot. Oh, he got knocked out. There he is. Okay,
but what happened was when he started the Temple of Hip Hop, he used to ask me to be down and to come down to LA and do a lot of stuff with him. But I'm an Orthodox Muslim. And so I was like, bro, like I'm already Muslim. Like I get like you have this spiritual connection to hip hop, but I don't have it like that. I think of it differently, but I respect what you're doing. And then one day he we were both speaking at San Jose State, and he actually had a copy of the Temple of Hip Hop on the table, and he went up to go speak, and I was like, let me see what this dude talking about. So I opened it up, you know, and I'm a speed reader, but like I read hella quick. I ain't gonna say I read the whole book, but I could get enough of what he was talking about to get a sense of what was in the book. And basically the way that I took it was there were things that he was calling like hip hop philosophy, but it was actually Greek, or it was actually Kemetic, or it was actually Hindu, or it was actually Buddhism. And so I was like, I don't think that it's fair to call what is clearly a Buddhist concept hip hop. I don't think that it's fair to the Buddhists, and I don't think that it's fair to spiritual seekers to make them believe that what you're saying is actually like authentically spiritual and original, right? So I had a problem with that. And then he reached out to me not long after that, and he asked me if I knew anybody that could illustrate the gospel of hip hop. And I took Scape One. Scape One is a Jersey born, San Jose raised graffiti writer. If you've ever seen the bomb logo, right, of that skull and everything, like he made that. So he's a creator of the bomb logo, okay? And he is not a joke with the spray can, right? He's written, I think, 2 books on graffiti art. I think one is called Color Master. I don't remember what the other one's called, but you can look him up. Scape Martinez. That's what he writes under as an author. We went to KRS-One's hotel. KRS-One starts telling us how he wants Scape to illustrate the gospel of hip hop. And so we was like, all right, well, what do you want? What do you want drawn? And he was like, well, like I need to be like holding a sword, slaying a dragon, and the dragon's name is Indus. Like it's like I'm slaying the industry because it doesn't do right by the people of hip hop or whatever. And so me and Scape left, and we were like, what is this dude talking about, bro? Right? Like this is an Indus. All right, blood, whatever, dog. So I wrote him this. I started calling him. He wasn't calling me back. I think he knew at that point I wasn't rocking. You know what I'm saying? So I was calling to ask him and say, hey, look, I read these sections of the book. It seems like that might have been Hinduism. It seems like this might have been Buddhism. It seems like this might have been Kemetic, you know what I'm saying, philosophy, and you're calling it hip hop. Like I'm trying to understand what you're doing. And so he never called me back. So I wrote, I think it was called The Weakness of Being Hip Hop. And
Okay, that's
on the
okay,
front
okay,
page
okay,
of All Hip Hop. Yeah, I think it was called
okay.
Oh, it was called Flawed. Yeah, it was called Flawed Philosophy, The Weakness of Being Hip Hop. And man, at that time, it set the internet on fire. And everybody was like, yo, who is this dude Adisa trying to get at KRS-One? And people was like, yo, this dude's a nerd. I mean, I look like Urkel. I understand. You know what I'm saying? Like,
We all do
know
it,
what I'm
right? At
saying?
this
Like,
point, everyone has battled
I'm straight Urkel, but I was Urkel. I was Urkel before Urkel. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
so I know like I look like a fucking nerd. And so people was like, and I was like, this is what I think is wrong with what you're saying. And I would like to debate you about this idea at a university, what's really. So the hilarious part is he writes a response, but the response was actually full of personal attacks and was not like any remote scholarly work.
Right.
So then public opinion starts shifting. They're like, oh my God, this fucking nerd from the West Coast might actually be schooling KRS-One on hip hop. And like, of course, you know, that's not a good look for the teacher. So, so there was a 2-year gap in between, and then he wrote a second piece against me, but again, even that was filled with more personal attacks. So it made me look good, you know what I'm saying? So while he's touring, doing his regular things, what's happening is because I'm Muslim, hella Muslims know me. And when, let's say Chris is out of any random city and now it's time for Q&A. Okay, this and that about the South Bronx, this and that about graffiti. And eventually someone would say, hey, are you going to debate Adisa? And I think he thought that I was setting those up. You understand?
Right,
I think that
right.
he thought I was asking people to antagonize him, but I really was not. I had nothing to do with it. So when he comes to Stanford one day for this, there was a year where the Harvard Hip Hop Archive had moved to Stanford. Okay. And so I was on one panel and he was on a totally separate panel. And this was the first time we'd seen each other since the thing. But then what happened is when he got there, Dr. Mark Anthony Neal started asking him questions about hip hop, and rather than answering any of them, he said, "Yo, we got FBI agents in the building. We got agents against hip hop in the building." And he was like, "Adisa Banjoko is a traitor, whatever." He started calling me a Judas. It was weird, bro.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, what's up, Chris? You trying to debate? What's up?" And then he was like, "What I want to do is table and beat your motherfucking ass." And I was like, "What's up?" And so, you know, at that time, I was only a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but I promise you, if we would have locked horns, he would have left injured, bro. That's not even like bragging. He would have got housed.
Let me stop you right there, Adiza. Let me stop you right there, because I honestly, I want them to check out the Dregs interview where you tell the whole thing. Like, this was just a little piece. I'm gonna put in the chat. I'm gonna put the Dreads podcast where he tells the whole story. I just want everyone to understand the background and why. When you wrote that article, was it hip hop? What was it again? Hip hop is.
It was called flawed philosophy: the weakness of being hip hop.
Okay, and so that's that's what kind of triggered the Hip Hop Dark Web in my mind, because my whole thing about the Hip Hop Dark Web is, and Dr. Derrick said it earlier, is like, we're here to stand to be corrected as well. Because
I'm trying to say, bro,
because if we are flawed in the research that we do, we want to know, we want to get checked to make sure we can make a course correction in educating versus taking it personal as a hit. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. You know what I mean?
You know,
and to be honest, y'all, if I'm being 1,000 with y'all, like when I challenged him, and I swear, right? I swear, my goal was not to like humiliate, embarrass, or attack KRS-One.
Right.
During that time, you know, I've lectured on Islamic history at Harvard. I've lectured at Brown University. I taught at Zaytuna College, which is the first Islamic liberal arts college. It's in Berkeley, California, with some of the coldest Islamic scholars. And if you studied remote Islamic history, you know what the Moorish Empire built and did. Okay, these were Muslims from Northwest Africa who conquered Spain in 700 AD. They brought everything from maps to chess to soap to architecture. Okay, and one of the things that they did is they had tons of debates with Jews and Christians, and they were the ones that translated the Greek books into Arabic, which were later translated into English. They preserved the Greek classics, and they were debaters. And so I was trying to create a situation where hip hop would have higher level debates. That's all I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to, attack him, but he took it as a personal thing, right? He took it as a personal thing, and it was not meant as a personal thing.
Right.
And I even now, like, I think that, you know, while I don't have any question about what would have happened if we would have locked horns, I still think that in some ways I might have been immature. I think we were both immature at that time. You know what I'm saying? I think we both failed our duties as educators in the space in that moment, right? Even to get to the point where like two educators are gonna like lock horns, like you already both kind of lost. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
That was the spirit. Like I came with a pure spirit and a pure intent, and it just kind of spun out of control, I think, on both sides. You know?
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. Like, Dr. Derrick, you still there?
I am still here.
Yeah. So and then Dr. Derrick is actually a Christian. That's, you know, so this is what's dope about this show. Why I want it, because Adiza is a Muslim, but he's from the West Coast. I'm Filipino. I'm from the West Coast. Pluto's from Jersey, you know, Bronx, but we all have maybe different beliefs, but we're here to have intellectual conversations about hip hop. And that's why I think, you know, where there's like, you know, we're not, we might play devil's advocate, we might not, but we're here to have a discussion, a healthy discussion without, as if we learn something, we agree to disagree and all that. Yeah,
I'm saying,
You
man, you know what
know,
I'm saying? And I think that it's falling apart. So I'm happy to see people having these discussions intentionally, you know what I'm saying?
Go ahead, Pluto.
no, I was just gonna be a derelict and just say you got to ask yourself why is that. Here's the thing. I respect Karis one and what he's done and all that stuff. But like, there's a lot of stuff that he really does not know. People are afraid to say those things.
I mean,
It's true.
Come for me.
Oh, no, Pluto's like, yeah, go ahead.
Like, no,
Go ahead.
I'm saying,
Go ahead.
This is the thing about me. I stand on my square with my research. I say that I have the most accurate narrative in the history. I've introduced over 200 people in hip hop culture that 90% of the culture does not know.
Right.
I back up what I say against anyone on the planet Earth.
Right.
Come for me.
See, I love that. I love that. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing, right? Is I think part of it, like, okay, so again, I'm out here doing martial arts. So I went to the school the other day and I didn't have a uniform. So this dude gave me a uniform so I could train, but they only had a white belt, right? My black belt was back at my apartment. And so he was like, look, I have a uniform for you, but I don't have a black belt. And so I just said, I don't care. I put the white belt on and I got on the mat. And the reason I did that is because literally the day before, I have like this journal that I keep and I put different affirmations in there. And one affirmation was, I am a master of jujitsu. And the other affirmation was, I am a student of jujitsu. So I didn't have a problem putting that white belt on because I don't care, right? I'm here to learn just as much as I'm here to teach. And I think that, unfortunately in hip hop,
that's a humbling
we have
statement.
a lot of people.
That's a very humbling statement.
I mean, dude,
I see that shit right from the door.
I'm telling you, man, like you have to know, like the thing is, and anybody who studies martial arts or any art at the highest level knows you have to stay a student because it's impossible to know it all. Let me tell you, today there was a brown belt at the gym where I was at, Gracie Baja Roundtable leads. His name is T, and he was showing stuff that I don't do. Just because I come from a different generation of jujitsu. And so I was like, this is dope. I wasn't like, well, you know what? I'm a black belt from the West Coast and I started under Ralph Gracie, so I don't accept this. I was like, that's dope. You know what I'm saying? And I was having fun with some of the other techniques, like, yo, we did this move, but we did it here, we put the emphasis there. And I think that that's the spirit of all art at the highest level. You know what I'm saying? When I sit down with y'all, whatever I wrote, whatever I did, but I'm here to learn from both of you, from all three of y'all, because I know you've been places and seen things I haven't seen, and I'm just as much excited about that as whatever I have to share. You feel me?
There you go. All right, so now that we've got a full introduction to Adisa, I'm gonna have Dr. Derrick answer this first because this was a question. Because we got all the breaking stuff kind of out of the way a little bit, like all the deep stuff.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna get the general consensus, and this is what Pluto was like. When are you gonna talk about that? I'm like, wait, hold on. Now we can talk about it. When I asked Dr. Derrick, 50th year of hip hop, what's your opinion?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's not 50 years old.
Oh, okay, here we go.
So again, you're talking about the elements. You're talking about graph writing, which predates all the elements, as far as 69 into the 70s. And some don't believe that that's part of the hip hop ecosystem, and I get that. I personally do, but that's neither here nor there. But then you have the DJs, again, the specific DJs, starting around 73, who are playing the breaks, the rare grooves. Then you have the B-boys who hit the floor. Some say before that, but late 74, 75. And then you don't have the MCs until 76, 77. So I I don't know how that equates to 50. Now, when you're going 73 to then okay, but that's not the entire culture. It doesn't happen yet. So no, it's not 50 years old. That's my 2 cents.
All right. I don't know what happened to Diesel, but he'll probably call back. Pluto, go for it. This is what you wanted.
Okay, you know, I'm gonna just take us back a little, you know, and you know, this is gonna be, you know, this is gonna be like a quick journey. All right, so as we know, what the criteria of what we acknowledge as hip hop culture is all four elements. So in order for that, you know, to really be acknowledged, we all acknowledge all four elements. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the Cedric the event that happened in the Cedric Community Center in 1973 August, I forget the exact date, but at that time, historically, from my account, I have never heard great b-boy battle stories at that event.
Because there was none.
Exactly. I never heard any like aerosol or writing going on at that. There's no receipts for that. There's no receipts for any MCing, because if I'm not mistaken, MCing really started kicking off like around mid '76. You know, like hip hop and like hip. We have to be specific because then you know people go on a tangent. Hip hop specific rapping did not exist then. So then you know.
Sorry. My bad. My bad. Go ahead. I wanted background. That's my bad. Go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
So then you have you know, and then you have like DJing. So you know, Herc was really the one DJ who was DJing there. You talk to like DJ AJ. He said Herc was a record player. He wasn't really a DJ, but that's a whole nother different story. But my point in all of this is that there was no practicing elements, which I would think an educated guest would constitute to be acknowledged as the date. That happened more in 76 in the park jams. You know, where, you know, like late 76, 77, where, you know, the B-Boy,
before
DJ
that,
Clark Kent, the original Clark Kent brought doubles. There were doubles going on there. The dance was being like the height of the dance. You know, they're dancing towards the break. So the changing of the guard of the way the dance was is what definitively was the beginning stages of what we do right now, dancing to the doubles. A DJ practicing what, you know, the DJing with the doubles and introducing that aspect. And then you have MCs who are rapping over the doubles. You're not going to rap over Apache and then rap over Bongo Rock, because it's two different rhythms or whatever, whatnot. You know, so
it's hella fast too, boy. You'd have to be raw.
Exactly. So everything we acknowledge as hip hop does not add up in 1973. And anybody, I would love for somebody, you know, to articulate stuff or enlighten me on stuff that I don't know. Because again, like you said, I'm not above learning. Sometimes I put myself out there to learn more stuff because, you know, I'm hungry for this information. I've always been hungry for this information. But right now, those receipts don't add up. And when I speak this on certain social media, and I know the old school dudes see me, I've not gotten one response.
Can I ask both of you guys a question, please? Like, because you're from the East Coast, and you're actually there, obviously, right? Like, I'm about as far away as you can get from South Bronx as you can get. You know what I'm saying? There's a guy named Eric Arnold. He's a really dope journalist from the Bay. And one of the things that happened was a few years ago, I saw, and I don't know if it came out or if it came out on YouTube, but there was supposed to be a thing about how Queens DJs predated the South Bronx with a lot of the sound system stuff. Now, I'm not here to argue that because I'm not from Queens. And like I said, I only saw the trailer for this thing, but I think that they were saying another DJ. I don't want to say Hollywood, but I don't remember. But they were saying that there was a group of Queens sound system people that predated BAM. I wanted to know what your thoughts on that were and how accurate is that. And then
I think I know who's going to answer that.
The second question is what we ended up calling hip hop in 73 actually a South Bronx creation, or are these African American street urban traditions that finally had a codified name. And I'm asking because I want to know your opinion.
I think
Both
I
of
know
you
who's going to
can
answer
go
that.
first.
I know who's going to answer that first.
Whose answer is that?
Yep, that's you, Dr. Derrick.
Uh-oh.
This is why I love this show.
All right, I'll go just quickly. When it comes to, so the video you're talking about is the founding fathers, and so there's been debate on the Brooklyn DJs and the Queens DJs, and the probably the main Brooklyn DJ that they're referring to is Grandmaster Flowers. And when you talk to people like Cool DJ D, who was part of Bronx Dale, he ended up becoming a Black Spade. He comes to Bronx Dale around 71, but he was part of a group called Fantasia, and Fantasia would play with all those guys in Brooklyn, Flowers, Maboya, all those DJs. And they asked D, what was the scene like? Was it a hip hop scene? And he said, no, absolutely not. The big sound systems, yeah, they had big sound systems outside, but he said big sound systems don't equate to hip hop. There was no hip hop. They were disco DJs. Hip hop this is Cool D saying this. Hip hop is a Bronx creation. It does not happen anywhere else. So yeah, so as far as Flowers is concerned, he was not a hip hop DJ,
a hip hop person. He was more of a sound system person then, but he wouldn't have been like hip hop.
But then you have
as
Pete
we
DJ
knew
Jones,
them.
who's part of that crew. And Pete DJ Jones is from the Bronx, and he would eventually become a hip hop DJ and known for being. I mean, he battled Herc, and in 70s.
Davey D told me about him.
Yeah,
Davey D told me about Flowers and Pete DJ Jones, who obviously, me being from the West, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know. Thank you so much. Thank you
Could I add
Go
on to
for it,
that?
Pluto. Go for it.
Of
That's
course,
why we're here.
yeah, absolutely. That's why we're here, bro. Let's do this.
Okay. When that video came out, we had a conversation on the 70s page, because a lot of people asked about that, and we're talking about that. So Charlie Rock came in and he did a video. He did two videos that were like, one is like 18 minutes, another one is 20 minutes. Funny you should say this, because I was just talking to my cousin about this earlier today. And I was, because he asked about this. So when I gave him, the answer, and then I added, the videos. Charlie Rock, there's a video of that, debunking it. Charlie Rock was there.
Debunking what? Debunking what? Debunking what?
Debunking that it started in Queens and in Brooklyn. He debunked that whole he debunked it, that whole documentary. And here's the interesting thing about him is, like, he's what they call the nomadic b-boy. Him and DXT were guys who b-boyed around that time when most people were staying in the Bronx. They went to other boroughs and danced at those boroughs, and they were told, get that hippity hop stuff out of there. And another thing that separates them is, if you did you see the documentary?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so when you see
I just saw the trailer for it. I just saw the trailer.
Okay, if you saw the documentary, they're playing "Love Is a Message" and things like that, and the more disco oriented. Yeah, that's one of them. Disco more type of music. Now they're wearing suits. This is how you know whether it's hip hop. Here are the receipts for whether it's hip hop. The people over in Brooklyn and in the Bronx are wearing. In Brooklyn, Queens are wearing suits. They're playing disco. They're not playing the aggressive Jimmy Castor stuff. They're not playing Apache and all this stuff, aggressive stuff. Disco is more like fancy, smooth, and all that. Which
grown and sexy,
exactly.
Right?
Which
grown and
sexy. Another thing, the B-boys were younger by like a good 7 years. 5 anywhere between.
Yeah, because they were just a different generation, right? They were a different generation.
And then also when you went to those events, people are getting dressed up. You wouldn't wear sneakers to those events. B-boys hit the floor. They hit the floor. And they were dancing with pro kids. They weren't doing none of that. They were wearing pointy shoes, man. Some pimped out shit.
Man, I'm so fascinated and grateful to both of you for this information, because this is the stuff that I really care about. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's just I'm fascinated by it. And one of the things, you triggered me because I recently taught a class on hip hop history through documentaries, and there was this one, and I feel bad right now because I don't remember the name of it, even though I played it. But one of the defining elements of this documentary around hip hop fashion is, for about a 5-minute segment, they break down the boroughs by dress code. And it was so dope. They were
Fresh
like,
dress.
if
What?
you were
Yeah.
really
It's called fresh dress.
if you were really from, there you go. If you was
Fresh.
really from
Yeah.
Queens back in the day, it was like this. If you was really from Bronx River, you'd be like that. And I like love that. Like it totally had me engrossed, right? And so to your point, right? Like dudes was like suited up, right? Because I remember, oh, there's this track I recently heard from Jedi Mind Tricks, and Vinny Paz says, some whatever MC. I was down with the Fat Boys when they was the Disco 3.
Oh shit.
You know what I'm saying? And I remember when I first learned about the Fat Boys, the first thing that I knew is that they had just changed their name to the Fat Boys from being the Disco 3. And if you listen to some of the early Fat Boys records, they'll be like da 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 da, and we're no da, 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 it's a Disco 3, like yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, like that's how you know, that's
here's
old
something.
school. You know?
Here's something interesting. You know, when I was a kid out in '89, these two dudes from Brooklyn moved to my area, and then not too long after that, a dude that became a good friend of mine moved from the Bronx. And I and I remember as a kid, you know, we would we would go to homeroom and we would skip school and we would just hang out in this block in the Bronx, you know, and like we were just hanging out.
Yeah.
So I remember one time we were all hanging out and they had this conversation and I'm sitting back and I'm listening to what they're saying and they're breaking down like, yo, this is how you can tell who's from what borough, because each borough wore their hat, a baseball cap, a different way. The Bronx wore theirs to the back and to the side. Brooklyn at that time wore theirs, you know, the front slightly tilted. And, Queens, was like, in between or whatever, whatnot. So like they were like, yo, this is how we recognize people from, that era. And that
Different
it was
sets. Yeah.
that documentary kind of talked about all of that stuff. So there's so many intricacies of the culture that people don't know. Like for instance, you want to know like a real old school b-boy? This is some old school b-boy shit. When you have a boombox, real b-boys don't put their boombox on the ground. Want to know why? Because the magnet in the ground drains your batteries. So you put it on something hanging up or you
Yo,
put it on a crate.
listen. There's a book called Boombox. Oh my, hold on. The guy's name is Lyle Owerko. Owerko. Okay. It's called the Boombox Project. I'm in the Boombox Project. So is MCA. So is Rosie Perez. So is Kool Mo D and all these other people, right? I was the one that carried the boombox. I was the guy. Okay. And so I know that you're saying that because I know that's right, because that's how I was. And one of the things that really blows my mind with a lot of this stuff is that particular book shows you different boom boxes over the years. Like, you got the single tape, the double tape, the one with the whatever, right? And so it's like, that history and that part of hip hop has totally, yeah, there it is. There it is, right? So I'm in this book, right? It covers all these different aspects of like hip hop and how everything went down. And like, even though I was from the West Coast, I
Beautiful monsters.
really paid, I paid so much attention to all of those aspects of what it meant to like not only have the boombox but have the tapes right. You know what I mean? So when people decided to dance, you weren't playing just whack ass weirdness, right? But the thing that I really wanted to like share with you, right? The things that I really wanted to share with you both, or ask you both, is like, when you both look at the history of hip hop and all the things that we do talk about, I'm curious to know from each of you, what is something that you wish was more talked about, that is a factual part of this history that we don't discuss? That what are
Good
some of
question.
the less discussed concepts of the truth in hip hop that should be celebrated and
Good
shared more?
question. Can I go
Let's go.
first?
Let's
Can I
go.
go first? Can I go first?
Go first.
Yeah, you go
Yeah,
first.
yeah,
You go
yeah.
first. You go
So
first.
obviously I'm going to be biased, right? Because I'm a b-boy. So
you're
guess
going
what? They
after
know
graffiti.
it. Actually, no, but and that's the thing is the connection of we're so used, like, people that subscribe to me already know this is what I'm about. But I'm glad that you're here and everyone's here to talk about it. Is that with breaking, it's just like I just said this earlier, I think behind and backstage. No, I said it live on Instagram to promote this show. I said, I think even over MCs, I think B-boys and B-girls use the term cipher more than anyone else in hip hop at this moment. Like, no one uses cipher
I think
anymore.
that's probably true.
No one uses.
It's
Why?
a
Because
functional part. It's a necessary function in your element.
and the thing is, no one understands. Like, I should give a shout out to Talk About Breaking. They just put up a clip of Floor Phantom talking about we got the word cipher from the 5%ers. Like, there's actually a clip, so that's good for the kids.
Finally.
Yeah, okay. And now we're talking, and Dr. Derrick just had a live where it was like hip hop and religion, because and he touched upon the 5%ers and Islam and Christianity. And I thought that was dope because it's not talked about, right? We're talking about this was kind of our spiritual connection, what made Rakim different, what made KRS different, what made PRT different, and talking about, I'm just going to go, right? I'm just going to go. Like, this is the whole reason when Paradise Gray had that meeting at Latin Quarters when there was violence, and that created the Stop the Violence thing, was because of these things, right? Because of like bringing that element of spirituality into hip hop, and that created like the Native Tongues movement and stuff like that. And it's messed up circling back around where Paradise Gray won't recognize the breaking stuff, and he's doing the hip hop museum. See how I did that?
Now let me ask you though, let me ask you, when you say that he won't recognize the breaking stuff, what would you like to see from him specifically?
Everything that we're talking about, everything we're talking about, everyone from Trixie to Sasa to the original guys that led up to having a whole section.
Acknowledgement of hip hop culture, because all they got in there was rap culture. The museum.
While that's probably true. Okay, but if you're looking at it probably from a place of and I'm not talking as a cultural lover in this moment, I'm only speaking as like someone who's like ran like nonprofits and stuff like that. You got to start with the glittery stuff to get the money, right? So if they start with the MCs, they can get the money to build out, if they're well intended, what should exist for graffiti or what should exist for b-boying and the turntables and stuff like that. I'm not saying that they will or they won't. I'm just talking about from a strategy perspective, but that also means that they didn't have to ignore it either. And I haven't seen enough to have a comment, but what I'm saying is, like, somewhere between no acknowledgement and making it all about b-boying, I'm sure there could have been a compromise of acknowledgement
and that's
historic significance.
I've been in personal situations in regards to the museum, and what what was asked of me and what was acknowledged was everything but what I did, which was ludicrous. So I can't take them seriously.
Okay, so here's one thing I'll throw at you, and and when I say this, I'm talking to all three of y'all and anybody else who's listening, because hip hop is that big, right? It's not about me or you or anybody that's on here, but it's about how big hip hop is. So I curated 2 exhibits on hip hop. One was at the World Chess Hall of Fame. It was called the unexpected collision between hip hop and chess, right? I had RZA come out. It was a whole thing. It was about hip hop and martial arts and chess. Then in 2018, I did another thing called Respect, Hip Hop Style and Wisdom, which was at the Oakland Museum of California. More than 100,000 people came out, but a lot of people did hate. Now, I did have videos that had Bruce Lee, that had B-boys, and originally Profo, if you remember, I was trying to get
Mhm.
you and your brother to do
Oh,
some
yeah.
stuff together, but we just
Yep.
weren't able to pull it together. But I was right from the beginning, like from
Yep.
the
Yep.
inception, him and his brother, that was the plan, to have them do some stuff. It didn't come together. But here's my point. There were a lot of illegitimate and some legitimate critiques about what we covered and what we did not cover. People was like, yo, you didn't cover this, you didn't cover that, whatever. Some people were really upset. Other people were like, hey, it's still dope. Most people thought it was dope. My point was this: if you are not happy with what you see from a hip hop museum or collegiate institution, what you should do is take what they're not putting in and use that for your right. So what I'm saying is, if someone will take the time, and it won't be fun, it won't be easy, and it'll be a lot of thankless ass work, okay? Because that's what a lot of research ends up being ultimately, right? Like, you could make a b-boy history museum. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Team up with the Guggenheim. You could team, right? Like, that's what I would do. Like, if this is really important to you, and I believe that it is, you should start saying, all right, I'm calling every curator at these 20 New York museums until one of them says that they want to do the history of b-boying. Because until you do that, the people who will use the glitter of rap music as the entry point, they may never give b-boying its due, and it deserves its due, right? But I'm saying that not only is it important, but that you shouldn't expect it any other way unless you pick it up intentionally with that manner. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Dr. Derrick, what you got to say?
So he asked the question about what. Can you rephrase your question, brother Adisa? You I forgot how you asked it. What would we like to see? Was that the question?
Yeah, what I said was, with all the things that are celebrated and talked about in hip hop, what do you think are some of the more important, lesser known facts that should be more celebrated
Yeah, I mean,
about any aspect of hip hop?
yeah. Oh boy, that's a loaded question, Profo. You know where I'm about to go.
Go for it.
So definitely as a, and I don't want to make it about this, but I'm just going to speak about it. It's just a passion of mine. But as a Puerto Rican who feels that there is not enough acknowledgement of the contributions that Puerto Ricans have made to the culture of hip hop from its inception.
1,000.
And people have a problem with that, with the whole idea that we're trying to steal something. I mean, I don't get that ideology, but so that would be something that, again, it's just information. Once you identify who were these people back then in its inception, who were these, then you can start, talking. So, Pluto brought up the fact that it's not 50 years old. So, when we look at, for instance, Flash, and we look at the fact that it's in 1975 that he introduces at 23 Park in the South Bronx the quick mix theory. He had already been working on it. He introduces it at this park, him and Easy Mike. And so they asked him what was happening at the park. And he says, B-boys were there and people were doing the hustle. There were hustle dancers in the park. But when you ask who were those B-boys, my man disappeared.
Yeah, he's probably still on. Yeah, keep going.
But when you ask who were those B-boys, right? That would be the question. When you talk about the location of 23 Park, of 63 Park, that's the South Bronx. Those B-boys were most definitely both Black and Puerto Rican B-boys that were there at those early stages with Flash. So, that's just a passion of mine. It's just for me, it's just history. It's not trying to prove a race over another race. It's just what is the true history, and you can't eliminate people out of the history. If there were white boys, acknowledge the white boys. If there were Chinese people, acknowledge, and there were white boys. I mean, there were white boys in the beginning. They were there. So it's all of that, I think.
Yeah, cool. As we're waiting, Diesel got cut off, and you said something. You said some really eloquent things. Let's go to the chat real quick while his device is not working. Call on again, Diesel. All right, so we're gonna go down the chat. He's trying. Okay. DSO channel says Bishop has entered the chat. Jennifer Thompson says, nice to see you doing your thing, Pluto. Corey says, just blame daylight savings. Oh, because he was late. DSO channel says, Urkel, who could submit you with grappling. I agree. Let's see. Jonathan Mizzle says, that's a good question. Boom. Great question. Great question. Surprise emoji face from Jonathan Mizzle. And then Corey says, love y'all brothers, keep doing your thing. I encourage everyone to check out the Black Roots Science, Tribal Wisdom, and Creation Story from Botswana. Peace. All right. I don't know what's going on with the Diesel right now. We're almost 2 hours in. Hopefully he'll come back because I think we should be ending it soon, even though, man, that was a good question. I really like what Diesel was bringing to the table. Yeah. So as we wait for Diesel, or if he doesn't show up, there he goes. There he goes. Okay, Diesel, did you hear that? He said some deep things.
I know he was killing it, man. I was so mad. I get booted out. I try to get in. I can hear him, and I'm like, what? But I can't. So I'm all about the Puerto Rican contributions, right? I'm all about the Puerto Rican contributions. I know there were some white folks there as well, and you know what I mean. Like, I actually was seeing. There was a documentary that Profo is in that deals with Bruce Lee and hip hop, and there was a woman who actually, she was in the original version. Some of the stuff she said got cut, but one of the things that she did say in regards to Asian contributions to b-boying was that someone she spoke with said that there was a group of Asian b-boys called, I'm probably butchering this crew, but I think they were called like the Shanghai Twins or the Shanghai Boys. But like, she was like, they were known, but like no one has a picture of them. No one, you know what I mean? But they were absolutely Asian b-boys that were on that scene in the early time. And so I love that stuff. That stuff fascinates me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think really when we look at the pushback about Puerto Rican contributions to hip hop, I'll tell you what I think it's rooted in. At least in the most recent critiques, only in the most recent critiques. One, the critiques, in my experience as a West Coast person, are recent. This wasn't something that I heard before, right? Like when I was around in 89, 90, 92, 93, I didn't hear these critiques, right? Because obviously there's wiggle.
You got cut off. Adiza, you got cut off. Yeah.
Can you hear me still?
Now you're back. You're back.
Okay.
We just missed 5 seconds.
Like, you know, I'm saying like wiggle. Okay. I'm saying like Wiggles, right? Legs, right? Pop Master Fable. Obviously, they're clearly Puerto Rican. We don't have any questions about these things. Okay. But what I think though is that, as you know, sometimes when you look at Black America's kind of like evolution in terms of groupthink, in the last few years, there's a group called ADOS. Okay. And so ADOS is kind of this really kind of like homegrown African origins of everything kind of a thing, right? No disrespect to y'all. I'm just not sure that it's all historically sound. And I'm serious. No disrespect. I'm just telling you, I'm not sure it's all historically sound. My point is that most of the people that I see making these critiques around the Puerto Rican contributions appear, not saying that they appear to be ADOS adjacent or ADOS people, right? Who are trying to be like all Black everything, period. And so when you come into art like an all Black everything, period, then it's almost necessity that they would attack Puerto Rican contributions, okay? And that doesn't validate it. I'm just telling you what I think is happening. That's one part. The other part, and this is where it gets dicey, is, while I will never, ever argue about Puerto Rican contributions in hip hop because it's insane, right? Like it's not a thing that I think you could do and be sane or be honest about history. I think there's another component in a lot of Puerto Rican culture and Dominican culture from the East Coast, and that is the seeds of anti-blackness through via white supremacy inside the subculture of Puerto Rican culture and the subculture of Dominican culture in general. And so, you know, I know Dominicans that are like 20 million shades blacker than me, and they will look me dead in the face and be like, I'm not black, right? I mean, like, I know these people. I know that there are lots of Puerto Ricans who will moonwalk on their light skin privilege, right? But then call people dark niggas and call black women, you black bitch, and shit like that. And I'm talking about b-boys that I know for real, because I know the black women they said that to. Like, I just spoke to her before I got on this call. You understand? So I'm not making stuff up. I can bring the receipts, okay, of Puerto Rican anti-blackness. And so what I think is happening is between the ADOS insanity, and I am calling it insanity, and the authentic white supremacist elements of colorism and white supremacy inside some Puerto Rican and some Dominican culture, you're getting a pushback. I know people don't like it when J-Lo uses the N-word. I know a lot of black people who don't like it when Fat Joe uses the N-word and holds to it. Like he doesn't understand the pain that it causes, right? Even though he benefits from Puerto Rican light-skinnedness, right? And so I think that like it's a dicey cultural conversation on that side, but the contributions are irrefutable and they should be celebrated all day.
Yeah. Yo, well, you know, when we talked about Dr. Derrick, man, like they attack him for sure. He's the poster boy for those channels. That's why Dr. Derrick is on Hiphop Dark Web.
I would.
He argues with them. I'm like, why do you do it? Dr. Derrick, you there?
I would totally.
I'm in an interesting parallel because the crew that I represent, TBD, the Bronx Boys Rocking Crew, is majority Puerto Rican. So when people say, "Oh, Puerto Ricans didn't have any contribution," I'm the historian of the crew, so it's like, yeah, you know, hold on, you know, I might have to put you up on things. And then on top of that, you know, back in the 70s, they were known as the Puerto Rican Zulu Nation. So it's like, you might want to go back and do a little more research. You know, I refuse to argue with people about stuff that they don't know anything. You know, if I'm asking you like 2 or 3 questions and you can't answer them, we have nothing to discuss. You can't carry a conversation with me.
Right.
You know, like, you know, I conversate with my peers, everybody else I teach.
Word. Dr. Clark,
Derrick.
still
Dr.
in
Derrick.
the building.
Yes, sir.
So that's pretty. I mean, he doesn't even know the controversy, and he brought up some. Like Adisa doesn't know anything that we go through right now, and he just mentioned it, which is great. Like,
I just got here.
So, you know,
Let's just dive in.
it's you know, it's not just ADOS. It's also the Foundation of Black Americans with Tariq Nasheed, who is leading.
But aren't they the same? Are they the same? ADOS is not that?
No, they're not the same. 2 different groups.
Interesting.
So ADOS is led by a different person. Tariq Nasheed leads Foundation of Black Americans. And you know, they also make those charges that there are, and the charge is there has always been from the 70s Puerto Ricans that did not like black people. So why would they be a part of? To them, it's our culture. Our culture. So it's not an urban subculture. It is a nationalistic culture that they created called hip hop, which is, you know, again, I'm there. Now were there Puerto Ricans who fought with black people? Were there black people who fought with Puerto Ricans? Absolutely. It's the hood. That's gonna happen, of course. But when we came under the street culture that was not called hip hop yet, there was none of that. New York City is probably the only city, probably one of the only cities that does not have that racial divide to the extent that you see in other cities. Maybe even in the West Coast with the Mexicans, and it's a different it's a different thing. So we grew up in the same hoods. We grew up as far back as you trace it, you have blacks and Puerto Ricans at the inception. There's just no doubt about that. And
making it happen together.
Of course, making it happen together. So, when Fat Joe made the statement and people, bucked against that, really Tariq Nasheed sort of set that off. He's not speaking out of turn. He grows up in the South Bronx. It's a different era, but he can speak about his brother who was there in the 70s. Right. So, I think I think there's truth to what you said, that there are some that use, the light skin, almost as a badge of honor, as a way to, but for the most part, when we talk about the Bronx, when we talk about the South Bronx, when we talk about the Bronx in the 70s, Puerto Ricans made up most of the population in the Bronx in the 70s.
Makes sense.
Per capita. So, and then when we talk about the South Bronx was known as Little Puerto Rico. I mean, that's what you saw. But we lived in the same neighborhoods. So, like, I lived on a block with blacks and Puerto Ricans. I could go right down the block, turn the corner, and it would be all blacks. Turn the next corner, and it's all Puerto Ricans. And then go down the next block, and it's a mix. But we all rock together. But, we're talking about the era of the gangs. We're talking about the outlaw gangs. We got the blacks, we got the Black Spades, we got the Savage Skulls, we got the Savage Nomad. All of those guys.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing in b-boy crews and in the 70s street gangs, you had some that there were that mixed black and Puerto Ricans in those b-boy crews or those street gangs and all of that stuff. You had rest in peace Lava, straight man, a 70s writing, for those who don't know, graffiti legend. I remember one time we were giving him a ride home, and he had moved from the Bronx to Brooklyn, and I was like, wow, this is my chance to pick his brain. He, at 16 years old, he was a spade, he was a black spade. He's a Puerto Rican dude, a black spade. At 16 years old, he commanded like 500 people in Harlem.
That's crazy.
Here's
I hate to cut this short.
Here's what's funny, Adisa. The day before yesterday, I had the awesome opportunity. A guy reached out to me by way of email. Saw what I do with my videos. Wants me to do something. He called me. We spoke, and he just, as he's talking, introducing himself, he just makes mention. He says, I'm familiar with the Young Lords Party and the Black Panthers, and this is a Puerto Rican guy. And he says, my uncle is Felipe Luciano from The Last Poets. I said,
no
what?
Shit.
I said, what? He said, hold on. He puts me on hold. He comes back to the line. Felipe is on the phone. I said, bro, I got to ask you this question. You there for the exception. I said, brother, they're trying to say that Puerto Ricans were not there at the inception of hip hop. He immediately, he said, that's not true. That's absolutely not true.
It's impossible.
Now and then what they say about Felipe is that Felipe was trying to hide the fact that he was Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
And I told him that, and he said, what a silly statement. Everything I've done has been pro Puerto Rican. I mean, I'm with the Last Poets. I'm with, the Black Panthers. I'm with the Young Lords. I mean,
come on, man.
So yeah, it gets deep, brother. But it's unfortunate.
Well, I would like to think that us collectively could move on and let them babble in the corner somewhere as we push
We
the
will.
narrative
We
of
will.
research and
Yeah.
people are
We
leveling
will.
up and learning new things, because that's all they're going to do that to eternity, and they got no receipts. So when people have no receipts,
They're
and
like
nothing,
Black Trump
you just
supporters. You know
walk
what I'm saying?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yo,
They're like
yo,
Black
I
Trump
just gotta
supporters.
say, real quick, and I know these are, I think you're signaling to that you might have to bounce, but for us being on the West Coast, now we, me and the Disa could talk. When hip hop first came, as far as the whole, let's just say Style Wars, when Style Wars, that whole
Yeah.
attitude came, it didn't matter about race because it was about skill. If you had a
It
dope
really
hand
was,
style,
man.
dope. You could DJ, dope. You had some lyrics, dope. If you could dance, dope. It was just whoever came, because it was such like, at that time, especially early 80s, mid 80s, it was still niche. And it was a youth culture
Yeah,
anyway.
man.
So you
For
tried to
sure, man.
get in where you fit in, right? Like,
Yeah, and the West Coast, specifically the Bay, was so already integrated
exactly.
that it couldn't be all Black people, it couldn't be all Asian, it couldn't be all Latino, because everybody had to have a hand in it, because there were just too many different people attracted to the music at the same time.
You want to know the reason why we have these narratives and we're talking about, Black and Latinos, why people don't know the culture and all that. So you want to know why?
Mm.
Because our generation and the generation before that dropped the ball. We allowed
Completely dropped the
MTV
ball.
and all that to define. Remember in the early 80s, we were telling corporations what it was to be cool. These kids now follow somebody from a boardroom telling them what's cool. And now they're wearing like Dumbo
Agreed.
red shoes.
No, I agree. Well, yo, hey, I gotta lay down because I gotta get up super early to
I
teach.
hear it.
But
Well, let me do an outro.
It's all respect.
Yeah, let me do an
Let me
outro
just
for
say one
everyone.
thing
Okay, go for it.
before I dip, I just want to say on Instagram, please follow me at real and then the number 64 blocks. Real 64 blocks. Hit me there so we can continue to build. And I appreciate, being included. And again, sorry I'm late, y'all, but this was great.
Appreciate you, brother.
Right here. Wait, real quick.
Absolutely.
Right here. Boom. Right here. Can they follow you right here? Boom. Is that it?
Let me see. I can't see it. Where that?
It's on the screen, the main screen. Is that it? Real?
I don't
64 blocks?
see it. Can you
Right
see
here.
it?
Yeah, right
I
here.
can't see it. Oh, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
It,
All right, you can follow Disa. Hold on.
Yep.
Give a second before we do an outro. First of all, I want to say, yo, this is exactly what I imagine the hip hop dark web to be. Let's just say that.
Perfect. That's dope.
We probably could add other panels. Maybe we could do this once a month. This has been a very deep discussion that has been educational and open as far as like personal feelings, and like even the chat is more deep than what I usually get. So I want to thank all the panelists. We had Adiza. You can find him at the Real 64 Blocks. I'm gonna go to Pluto. Where can they find you on Instagram?
They can find me on Homage Crew. That's regular Homage, KRU.
All right.
Not Homage 2020 because that's an old page, but just Homage Crew on there. And then you can find all of that stuff. And then there's and on Instagram also there's Pluto 7 TVB, which is my old page, which has a lot of information of 70s information and all of that stuff.
Right there. You got
yes.
it right there.
Which has a lot of information on 70s stuff. And then, the 70s Beat Boy history page on Facebook, which is a page of so much information. Next month, I'll be celebrating 10 years of sharing this information to the culture.
We'll do a show on that. We'll do a trade on that. We'll do a show. And Dr. Derrick, is this your Instagram?
That's my Instagram. Yep. And if they just went to my YouTube channel, they could find all the other stuff. But
Urban Exegesis. Yo, honestly, this has been really, truly great for me. Like, I'm glad we come from diverse parts of and timelines of hip hop, and we finally had a discussion that's really deep and intellectual. And I play Jamie of Joe Rogan, pulling up clips. We definitely have to do this like once a month. You know what I mean? I think it's very, you know what I mean? This is dope.
I'm totally
Thank you so much for
Thank you
everyone
for doing
tuning in.
Thank all of you.
Yeah, and let me do
Listen.
my drop right here. Profile1 at PRFO_FLGZ. This has been the first episode of the Hip Hop Dark Web. Peace, and see you guys later.
Peace.
All right.
All right, right here. And